All right, hi everyone. Um, Thanks for your input on the Module 6 journals. Everyone did a great job on the analysis. Please look at my feedback um, and let me know if you have any questions. So to start on the first question, the think about it scenario, I think it was very interesting. A lot of you referred to the rabbi's discussion when talking about the Iqbal case, because I like that along with most of you. I think it helps guide us the most in examining whether to use torture or not. I don't know that we'll ever find an answer of whether we should consider it legal or not in our country. I tend to agree with Bellaby that there are very little times when it can ever be justified. I mean, Bellaby would say it's never justified, but um, I don't like talking in absolutes. However, because of the reasons we talked about, and because torture does not often lead to actionable intelligence, just because the perpetrator is more likely going to give you information that's going to get you to stop. And I especially agree, it has to be the last resort if we're going to use torture. Now, in the law enforcement community, you can pretty much forget torture. With the police being under constant scrutiny, and some of it deservingly so, and we've talked about some of that throughout the course. Um, I don't think you'd ever recover from a PR standpoint. Um, and there's a big difference between, say, some drug dealer and a murder suspect. Your average criminal is not going to be able to withstand torture. Even the threat of torture will probably get them to collapse. I don't have any law enforcement experience. I know some of you do. I have friends in the law enforcement community. I think they'd mostly agree with me. Um, I think average criminal will probably collapse with just the threat of torture, cave with the threat of torture. There's a big difference between them and, say, Khalil Sheikh Mohammed, which some of you talked about, KSM. And we'll get into him a little bit. So a lot of you used him as an example for your real world case of blackmail or deception. So I just don't think from a police standpoint it'll ever work. Uh, so my take is, as long with most of you who don't want to necessarily take it out of your tool bag, torture that is, if you don't want to take it out of your tool bag, but we need to ensure every other possible method has been examined and used. As someone in the previous class mentioned, there needs to be more research on other interrogation methods. I think that's a really good observation because I've been in the intel community for over a decade, and granted, I've never been a tactical interrogator, but that's a good point. I don't know about enhanced interrogation techniques, but I think there does need to be more research on them. Um, but I think by saying we don't use torture and then we use it, or we send prisoners to another country where they can use it, it just makes us look like liars, and the rest of the world doesn't trust us, and or our own public doesn't trust us. So I think wherever we stand, we just need to be honest about it. And if we don't know where we stand, we need to be honest about that too. I appreciate the class being honest where they stand, and a lot of you are confused by it. And I think everyone is. That's okay. Um, it's nice to have principles set out and to say this will never happen, we'll never cross this line. Um, but realistically, that's pretty untrue. And I know a few of you use the example of KSM, where the CIA used enhanced interrogation techniques. They started out by waterboarding him, and he was sending them on wild goose chases. So they pushed the envelope a little further. There's rumors or reports, I should say, of him being slapped around and sleep deprived and stuff like that. So um, I think it's hard to pontificate on what people should do in a tactical situation unless I'm there on the ground. Um, which is where some of you probably have a problem with Bellaby at times. I don't know Bellaby personally. The other instructor does talk to him and has met him, I think, but I don't know what his tactical experience is. So it's easy to pontificate from your air-conditioned cubicle, as I used to tell my soldiers in the Army. Um, but again, there's, if you can just remember that just intelligence principles are just to help guide you. Um, and I think I told some of you either on Zoom or in your journals, if you walk through the just intelligence principles and you deem torture as your last resort and you can live with it yourself, your co-conspirators or your co-workers, colleagues, whatever, they can live with it and you can deal with any potential PR fallout, then there's always exceptions. So I think what I like to say is taking a duty to care approach as our starting point. I think then we'll be less likely to engage in torture and we'll always be looking at better alternatives first. So I think if we look at that as our starting point and then look at our just intelligence principles and look at the harms, I think we're going to make the right choice way more likely than not, probably close to 100% of the time. But I think we are more likely to make a better choice if we use a duty to care as our starting point, and then we use Belleby's techniques to make a choice. So that's my thoughts. Good job this week. Feel free to leave any comments on this post, on this announcement, or send me an email. I'll be happy to respond. So good job this week, and good luck next week.